Breaking news this AM in the NFL when it comes to Tom Brady, the GOAT. He's announcing retirement once again. Of course, this comes after a season ended there in Tampa Bay, that loss to the Cowboys. Brady said after that game he had no idea what he was going to do, but announcing it today via Twitter that he is retiring early this morning here. Here's TB12 on that announcement, doing it himself.
Good morning, guys. I'll get to the point right away. I'm retiring for good. I know the process was a pretty big deal last time, so when I woke up this morning, I figured I'd just press record and let you guys know first. So I won't be long-winded. Like, you only get one super emotional retirement essay, and I used mine up last year. So really thank you guys so much, to every single one of you, for supporting me, my family, my friends, my teammates, my competitors. I could go on forever. There's too many. Thank you guys for allowing me to live my absolute dream. I wouldn't change a thing. Love you all.
The GOAT again saying bye-bye to the NFL. We've seen this before, but a little emotion there. I want to welcome in lead NFL insider Jonathan Jones. And JJ, your reaction to this news this morning. Once again, TB12 calling it a career.
You know, Brandon, I don't know if I'm supposed to be surprised. After all, the man's 45 going on 46 years old. He's already retired once. He appeared to be diminished a bit on the field last year. Yet I'm still sitting here a touch surprised. I thought, and a number of folks around the league thought, that he was going to give it one more go next year. And it could be in Tampa. It could have been with the Las Vegas Raiders. There was a lot of airspace taken up about the San Francisco 49ers. But ultimately, he's deciding to call it quits. And you have to imagine that there's plenty of personal sort of attachments that are factoring into this for Tom Brady. You know, he's the GOAT. He's done everything that you can possibly do at the position and then more. So it's not like he has anything left to accomplish. And so on one hand, there is some surprise. On the other hand, of course, considering where we were about this time last year, no surprise at all.
JJ, when you look at it, of course, you mentioned it. We saw maybe the decline last year, and then towards the end of the year, and of course the record and what the Bucs put on display this season. What do you think was maybe the deciding factor? We know the personal issue that kind of hovered in the beginning of the season, and then also the decline, as you mentioned there, the numbers we haven't seen. But what do you think was a deciding factor for him here making that decision today?
Yeah, I mean, certainly without any of us really knowing how deep the personal issues went, as we can all just sort of imagine, taking the step back and being outsiders, those have to factor in pretty heavily, right? Then you have to consider where your skills are at this point. You know, Tom really wanted to always play to 45. He said it for many, many years. And so he hit that 45-year-old mark. And so, you know, that was another mission accomplished. He may have looked out on the landscape of where he could go, where he could stay with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and say, you know, 2 years ago it was the Super Bowl. Last year it was losing in the divisional round. This year it was losing in the wild card round. And, you know, he's a historian of football. He understands that very rarely do you get to write your own script going out, and very rarely is that script going to make an about face there at the end. And so, you know, he could have been a realist looking at that and realizing, hey, that 8th Super Bowl may be really, really difficult to attain. And so those are the determinations, the factors that I'm sure went into this decision. But of course, in no small part, certainly everything going on in his personal life at this point in his life, and certainly at this point in his professional life, I would not at all be surprised to learn just how much they factored into this decision.
JJ, you're well tapped into every organization out there. You know the front offices and how they operate. But realistically, you know, what were you hearing, the rumblings of maybe him going to a Vegas or staying with the Bucs there, of maybe returning and being 46 here in 2023? What were those conversations you were kind of hearing there?
Yeah, well, we'll start with the Bucs, who I think a lot of folks thought that he was done in Tampa Bay. I mean, even after his press conference following that Dallas loss in the playoffs, one that I was at, where he essentially said his goodbyes, it seemed like, to the franchise. Now I think we all understand it was his goodbyes to the NFL at large, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers thought that they had a very good chance at keeping him, considering where his family was located in Florida, in South Florida. And so it'd be a quick jaunt down there from Tampa. And then I know the Vegas Raiders absolutely thought that they were going to have a very, very good shot at Tom Brady. And so you have those two teams certainly I had at the top of the list. Meanwhile, when you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, now that Brady is retiring, the Bucs, they're going to have some dead money here. They're going to have about $11 million this upcoming season, which is not too much. And then they're going to have to push a lot of it into 2024. That's going to be about $24 million. And that's obviously a bit more substantial, but teams can work around it. But of course, the Bucs, considering that dead money, had hoped that they would be able to re-sign Tom Brady for another year and make another run at it, despite all the evidence on that team that they were not going to be able to really run it back, if you will. And so those were the two teams I had always felt, and those were the teams that I think a number of folks around the league thought he could wind up at. I do want to be clear, there was the prevailing thought that Tom Brady was not done. He was going to play another year in 2023, that he was maybe not going to be in Tampa, maybe he was going to be in Vegas, or the Niners, or the Dolphins would make another run. Throw all these teams, the Tennessee Titans perhaps reuniting with his old Patriots teammate Mike Vrabel. All those were being tossed about, bandied about. Ultimately, though, he decides, it seems like very recently, to hang him up.
If we look back at this season and how it kind of ended for the Bucs, of course, not how he wanted it to, how would you look at how it kind of panned out, because they thought they were getting the pieces back to make another run, healthy coming into this year? How would we categorize this season, this final season for him?
Yeah, it was a disappointment, I think. Especially considering what he knew, what we all knew the Tampa Bay Bucs were capable of. He spent 3 seasons there. Again, they win the Super Bowl in 2020. They go to the divisional round, but when he steps off the field, they should be going to overtime against the Rams, and he did everything that he was supposed to do there in the fourth quarter to put themselves in position, ultimately, of course, losing out to the eventual Super Bowl champions. And then this season, just very, very difficult, where the team just could not run the football. You saw the age on both sides of the ball. You saw the difficulties with the coaching staff, with the offensive play calling, by virtue of Byron Leftwich being relieved of his duties there at offensive coordinator. Brady missed 11 days of training camp. He left the team mid-season on a Friday to go to Robert Kraft's wedding. Very, very unusual. He was dealing with the personal issues, as we have talked about. Again, he was forced to throw the football more than he ever has in any season of his career, setting a new NFL record that he had previously set the year before. And so it was difficult, and a lot was on his shoulders, those 45-year-old shoulders. And, they lost to a much better team in the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know that anyone thought that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would actually make noise in the NFC playoffs, just because this was not a team that really scared anybody. The only thing that scared them was the thought, the boogeyman of Tom Brady in the postseason. And then when we realized that this was a team sport and that he could only do so much, certainly at 45, I think that you'd have to characterize and categorize this season for Tom Brady as a disappointment, certainly compared to the previous 2+ decades that he had in the league. Doesn't go out on top, but how few do.
The Bucs, of course, releasing a thank you there on Twitter, saying thank you 12. But JJ, you kind of touched on it, the fun stories that we saw leading up to this. There was a video of him there in Miami looking at schools for his kids, maybe going back to San Francisco, the West Coast kid, and other teams out there. Your thoughts on what happens to those teams, the Niners, the Dolphins, maybe, the Raiders? Which direction, how does that impact them when they thought they maybe get TB12 at least for 1 year, maybe a couple?
Yeah, well, we're going to have a lot of movement around the NFL when it comes to quarterbacks. When you look at the Raiders, they're going to be in the market for a quarterback. There's no question about it right now, attempting to trade Derek Carr and ultimately very likely going to have to release him. San Francisco 49ers didn't make a lot of sense to me with Tom Brady. If Brock Purdy is able to come back and be ready for training camp, and they're going to have to figure that out in the next couple of weeks because of that UCL injury that's going to need a repair that will keep him out at least 6 months. They still have Trey Lance, who should be healthy there. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be available. He won't be back with the San Francisco 49ers. The Miami Dolphins have Tua. Won't at all be surprised if they go out and acquire someone else, a veteran. And so plenty of movement still to be figured out. Aaron Rodgers, of course, is going to be a name at the top of the list, as it appears that he is working on his departure from Green Bay. So plenty to be figured out around the NFL.
Plenty when it comes to the 7-time champion there. Jonathan Jones joining us here in that breaking news. Tom Brady calling it a career again when it comes to the GOAT. Appreciate your time. Want to take a look at it, of course. Brady has numerous records when you look at the books there. Passing yards, almost over close to 90,000 TDs, 649 completions. These are all the numbers that he amassed over that 20-plus year career. 3 in Tampa, along with a Super Bowl, and 20 in New England as well. So plenty for TB12, as he calls it a career. On Twitter, leaving it short and sweet for us this time around. TB12 riding off into the sunset.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.